helping people is very general, but I think once I got into medicine, it became more focused. It became more focused to my environment. And I think it's because that's sort of around the time when I developed interest, particularly in infectious diseases. And why infectious diseases? To me, it was because these are, a lot of them are treatable and preventable in these settings. And especially when I started my clinical years, I really struggled with dealing with the cases of malaria and the cases of meningitis in children, and sometimes having to see parents take their children back home because they could not afford the antibiotics to treat them. And you discharged the child knowing that that child was going to die. That is a preventable death right there. And, you know, the very first patient that I lost, who has stayed with me to this day, was a 3-year-old with severe malaria, brought into the hospital in Yaoundé, the capital, severely anemic, needing a blood transfusion, and the parents could not afford to buy the blood. And the kid died in my arms. I've never cried that much. I was in the 4th year of medical school. I cried so much I couldn't, and I remember the attending physician telling me, you're going to have to deal with this. And I would buy treatments from my own pocket. And the nurses would say, you can't keep doing this. There's 10 others who are going to come after this particular child. And immediately I knew that, I wanted to be in infectious diseases, be part of the change in that environment, help to finding the solutions, helping to get better access to these life-saving treatments that, how many children were dying like that, And there was no doubt. I knew that that's where I wanted to stay. People cope with it in different ways. Some people get really jaded and completely desensitized. And I wouldn't judge them, because you have to make a decision on how you're going to cope with this. But you can choose to be that person who becomes a cynic and just says, yeah, well, another one bites the dust. I move on, and I go home and I can process it and come to work the next day. Or you can choose to be that person who tries to do stuff that would cause a chain reaction and start changing the way things happen in that setting. And I think one of the reasons why I decided to orient my career towards research and combining research with clinical practice is because I feel that as a 9-to-5 physician, you're really limited. You're very limited. You're going to deal with that kid whose parents cannot pay, and then what? You're never going to influence policy. You're never going to find out the information that allows you to devise a new treatment or devise a new vaccine that can prevent some of this condition. So I wanted to be able to have a role that would have a far further, wider reach, as opposed to, just being the emergency bit of plaster that stops a problem when there's a massive leak. You have to go and address the problem. You have to stop the leaks at some point. So that I find it more rewarding now to be in a role where I feel that I am beginning to contribute to the solutions. It will take time. I have absolutely I'm under no illusion that it's going to happen like that. But, with time, things will change. And it moves me from that frustrated perspective where I'm just sitting in the clinic watching children come in and die because their parents can't afford blood transfusions, or because they didn't sleep under a mosquito net and they have malaria. All of these being treatable, preventable disease conditions.